The day my husband was arrested at our daughter's wedding. It was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. The sun was shining over the beautiful garden venue in California. White roses lined the aisle, soft piano music floated through the air, and our friends and family sat quietly waiting for the ceremony to begin. My daughter Emily looked absolutely stunning. Her white wedding dress shimmered in the sunlight, and her smile was filled with excitement and nervousness. I gently fixed a strand of hair behind her ear. "You look perfect," I whispered. She laughed softly. "Mom, I can't believe I'm actually getting married." I looked across the garden toward my husband, John. He stood proudly near the front row, adjusting his tie. His eyes were already full of tears. Our little girl was getting married. For months we had planned every detail of this wedding. Emily had dreamed about this day since she was a teenager. The flowers, the decorations, the music, everything was exactly the way she imagined. And in that moment, it truly felt like a fairy tale. Then the music started. Emily slowly began walking down the aisle toward Jack, the man she loved. Jack stood at the altar waiting for her, his face glowing with happiness. When he saw Emily walking toward him, his smile grew even wider. Guests watched with warm smiles. Some wiped away happy tears. I glanced over at John again. He leaned toward me and whispered, "I remember when she was learning how to ride a bike." I smiled. "And now she's starting a whole new life." The ceremony began. The minister spoke about love, commitment, and the journey of marriage. The words floated gently through the garden. Emily and Jack held hands, staring into each other's eyes. Everything felt perfect. Then the moment finally came. The minister looked at Emily and asked, "Do you, Emily Carter, take Jack Reynolds to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Emily smiled and opened her mouth to answer. But suddenly, a loud voice interrupted the ceremony. "Police! Nobody move!" The music stopped instantly. Guests turned their heads in confusion. 2 police officers walked quickly into the garden. At first, people thought it might be a mistake. Maybe they were responding to something nearby. But then the officers walked straight toward my husband. My heart began pounding. The taller officer looked directly at him. "Sir, are you John Carter?" John looked surprised. "Yes, that's me." The officer pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "John Carter, you are under arrest." For a moment, the entire world felt frozen. I stared at them in disbelief. "What?" I whispered. Emily dropped her bouquet. Jack stepped forward. "Wait, what's happening?" he asked. Guests began whispering. Phones appeared as people started recording. I grabbed John's arm. "There must be some mistake," I said. But the officer shook his head. "We have an active warrant." Emily's voice trembled. "For what?" The officer answered calmly, "Tax evasion." The words echoed through the silent garden. Emily began crying. "No, that's not possible," she said. John looked pale. "I swear, I don't know anything about this," he said quietly. But the officers had already placed the handcuffs around his wrists. My daughter's wedding had just turned into a nightmare. The ceremony stopped. Guests stood in shock as the officers escorted John away. Emily collapsed into Jack's arms, crying. The minister didn't know what to say, neither did I. Within minutes, the entire celebration had turned into chaos. Some guests quietly left, others whispered to each other, and somewhere in the distance I heard sirens fading away. Later that afternoon, I drove to the police station. John sat behind a glass window, looking exhausted and ashamed. "What happened?" I asked. He rubbed his face. "It's about an old business deal. Years ago, my accountant handled some financial paperwork. Apparently, some taxes were never properly filed." I felt my chest tighten. "You didn't know?" "I swear I didn't," he said. For the first time in our marriage, I saw fear in his eyes. Meanwhile, the news spread quickly. By evening, local reporters were already talking about it. Headlines appeared online. "Businessman arrested at daughter's wedding." Phones wouldn't stop ringing. Friends and relatives kept asking what happened, but we barely understood it ourselves. Emily and Jack decided to postpone the wedding ceremony. They wanted to wait until everything was clearer. The next few weeks were incredibly difficult. John hired a lawyer. The investigation revealed that the issue had started years earlier when a former accountant had mishandled financial records. Several documents were missing, and the tax department believed John had intentionally hidden income. But after a long legal battle, the truth slowly came out. The accountant had committed fraud, not John. Months later, the court officially cleared him of all charges. I still remember the day we heard the news. John walked into the house holding the legal papers. "They dropped everything," he said quietly. For the first time in months, we finally breathed again. Emily and Jack decided to hold another wedding ceremony. This time, it was smaller, simpler, and much more emotional. As Emily walked down the aisle again, I looked at John. He squeezed my hand, and when the minister asked Emily the same question again, "Do you take Jack to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Emily smiled through tears. Yes. Everyone cheered. This time, nothing interrupted the ceremony. No sirens, no police, just family, love, and relief. Looking back now, that day tested our family in ways we never expected. But it also reminded us of something important. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. Even the happiest moments can suddenly turn into chaos. But if you face those moments together, family can survive anything. And sometimes, the hardest days become the stories that bring us closer than ever before.